project is called the Qawairaq Inupiaq language project, and it was born out of a desire in White Mountains specifically to preserve what we could of the language. From it, the project being very personal, where we were thinking, we wanted something for ourselves, to realizing that we needed to create a project that was going to and that was going to involve all of the tribes in that language group, in the Qawairaq language group. We did a survey in the school and tried to gauge how many of the kids would be interested in learning their language. And I thought, we might get a couple of kids that are like, oh yeah, that would be fun. What we got was this outcry from the students that was almost verging on desperation, where they wanted to learn the language. They needed to learn something about themselves, deeper than the surface that we had created. We wanted to create a change in the communities that we're working in. We wanted to see the communities in 10, 20, 50, 100 years, and really look at, okay, what are some of the things that we would like to see in our villages, and how can a project that is focusing on language really have an impact on that? Is it going to be one where we really look at history of the community and empower people through that? Or are we going to look at philosophy that's embedded in the language and really draw that philosophy out and some of those teachings out of the language, so that people could have another tool for which their lives can be better and more whole? It was exciting to see that not only were they concerned about preserving the language, but that they saw that preserving the language meant preserving the people. They were really looking at this as visionaries for making changes to social issues that have plagued our communities for decades. And the language that we worked on, that we studied, recorded, is Qawairaq. It's the Qawairaq dialect of Inupiat. And Inupiat, for those of you who don't know, stretches all the way from Unalakleet and Nome, all the way north up into Barrow. When we started the project, we worked with each community, each of the six communities, to try to evaluate what we had as far as materials. Whether or not people had dictionaries, whether or not they had any kind of school materials or published stories or anything at all, what we got back was basically nothing. So when we were looking at this project and trying to decide, what do we create first? It was a really difficult question to figure out. Okay, do we create a dictionary that people can then use? Do we create, materials for kindergarten teachers? What do we do? So we really decided on recording as much as possible and then creating the dictionary to try to create a base for us to start on. It's very difficult to sit with an elder for 10 hours and say, how do you say this? How do you say this? How do you say this? And the elder to have the patience and the strength to go through hours and hours of that, it's just exhausting. And sometimes you would say, well, how do you say this? And I would be like, okay, I know what she's saying. That's not exactly what I'm asking. So I would say, okay, well then how do you say it this differently? It was very difficult, and yet very rewarding. We're really hoping to create a Rosetta Stone-esque online program that we can have available for folks. We're doing a lot of recording, place names of history, people's names, and the next thing we really would like to do is really develop a strong mentoring program based on traditional context, for learning values and traditions that are embedded in the language. The one thing that I know about our language that I think is probably universal to many other native languages is that we have an incredible point of reference with relationship to each other, to other people. And the language so clearly defines that and pulls us in by the very terminology within the language. And the same goes with our language's reference to place, to the very land that we live on, and to each place name that we're on. The language, when you use it and you use it with those place names, there's almost a spiritual connection that is evoked between a person and the very land that they're working, that they're living on, or that they're fishing from. It's a tremendous intimacy that I've not seen occur with other languages, and it's helped me to feel a deeper sense of commitment and love for the relationships that I have within my family and the relationships that I have with my land.